Calgary, Alberta in Canada. We're in the heart of the Canadian Midwest, just in the foot of the Rockies, and we are at the Olympic venue for the 1988 Winter Games. You say bobsled, everybody else says cool runnings. This is where the legend began, and it's where the second race weekend of the Viessmann FIBT Bobsled and Skeleton World Cup is happening. Hello everybody, thank you for joining us. We're ready to get into run two, the deciding run in the two-man bobsleigh contest. I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me is Canadian Olympian Helen Upperton. Helen, fantastic action here in the first heat. Maybe the biggest story, the Koreans in the chance of a medal position.
Sitting just a few hundredths off of the bronze medal with the home Olympics just 4 years away. These guys are a force to be reckoned with, and they are proving a point.
Yunjun Won, fourth fastest starter, fourth down the track. He's just a couple of hundredths behind world champion Francesco Friedrich, the German junior. 300ths in front, needs to find something to hang on. For the gold medal, it's a battle perhaps between two sleds, the Latvians and the Swiss. Melbard is giving chase. For FIBT, Helen Upperton's chance to prove herself right in picking the winner.
And those two, the two fastest starts, the two fastest at the bottom. We've said the push is crucial here in Calgary, and these two teams are proving that point exactly.
Well, Hefty had a silky smooth drive as well. It's not all finished when he sits down.
Yeah, he had probably the cleanest run out of anybody on the track, and with that fast 5:08 start time, he is the leader, and it is obvious why.
He will be last man to go in our second heat. Both heats count, and the total elapsed time decides your winner. FIBT, the race leader by a 10th from Melbardis, and then the battle for the podium spot between the Germans and the Koreans. Top American Stephen Holcomb in 7th place, top Canadian Chris Spring in 9th. Well, there you can see our start list. Heath Spence, 20th in Heat 1, will be first off at the top of the hill, and a chance for quite a lot of changes. There's a few close battles. Ice is in absolutely fantastic condition. Helen Upperton, this track has rarely looked better.
Yeah, there was a luge cup here last week, which means the sleds, the luge sleds do so much less damage to the track than the bobsled. So when we showed up here at the beginning of this week, the track was just glistening.
It's kind of like sending down a Zamboni. They polish it nicely, and they get a really nice cut to the edges of the turns as well, which makes for a very different running surface for the bobsleds. They can see the air temperature and the control still, the runner temperature, that hangs out in the air at the top of the track. And that's the control that everything else is measured against. So into Heat 2 then, Heath Spence and Lachlan Reedy of Australia will be first to go, and last on the ice, FIBT and Alex Baumann of Switzerland defending a 10th of a second lead, and in bobsledding terms, that's not an awful lot to defend with. So there's going to be some racing to come. First of our 20 sleds is Australia. Heath Spence and Lachlan Reedy. Spence, 34 years old, now lives and works in Calgary, Alberta. Lachlan Reedy, new to the World Cup this year, just 27, both ex-rugby union players.
There you go, come on. Here we go.
So let's get this second and deciding heat underway with the Aussies. Australia's Heath Spence in track. First of our 20 sleds at the Calgary Olympic Park, and he has set a 5.46 start, just a fraction slower than his first. Helen Upton, he's an Australian, but he lives and works here. He knows this track better than any other.
He does. He's got a lot of runs here. He drives the summer bobsleds for Winsport in the summer to make some extra cash, but he is struggling because he's in an unsupported federation, an unsupported program. He's practicing for a lot himself, and it's tough to be in a sport where the mechanics and the equipment and the team support make such a big difference on the outcome of the races.
Well, if you won things by heart alone. A lot of the smaller nations will be right up on the top step of the podium. They've got just as much dedication as anyone else. They just don't have the backup and the support. 55.84, fraction slower than his first run, 55.76. And it's often the case that after the sleds go down once, the track does get a little slower into the second heat. Plus, of course, the temperature's dropping. Might be a little frost on it as well.
Yeah, definitely the ice breaks down as more sleds go through. They're happy with that run. It looked like a better run than his first heat. This is down the bottom. They're carrying a lot of velocities. Flops a little bit off of curve 11 and into curve 12. Good exit off of curve 12, keeping it nice and parallel. And you want a high line in 13. You want to be right on the cusp of hitting that right wall, but not hitting it, which he did tap.
Heath Spence of Australia safely down. He'll head to the leader's box as our next 19 sleds will follow him. This is Latvian of Great Britain with new brakeman this season, Justin Oro-Campos. Latvian in the British Army. He's a guardsman. His day job when he's back home is guarding the Queen. And Justin Oro-Campos, just 23 years old, 6'1", 239 pounds, 17 stone of him from Frimley in Surrey.
The sled built by Wolfgang Stampfer, the coach of the Swiss team. He used to compete for Austria. He was a legendary pilot in his day.
Stampfer's sleds are always very, very fast at the bottom of the track at high speed. They always seem to be able to cheat the wind. Latvian with a lead over the Aussies at the moment, 1400s growing a fraction. Had a number of crashes in training. 7 to 8 was the difficult transition coming right up.
Takes a little bit of a wave in curve 7, but it puts him nice into 8, and that is a, well, I was going to say a better exit, but he does take a tap, skidding a little bit into curve 9. That's our big pressure corner.
Gaps coming down, only a 10th in front of the Aussies. He's behind on speed by 2 kilometers an hour. And he drops behind.
Heath Spence having a much cleaner run than this British sled.
126.5, not bad speed. 78.6 miles an hour, but he doesn't get close. And Heath Spence stays in the leader's box. So I see a big smile from the Aussies. Latvian gets down safely. He'll still get points in 20th spot, which is a lot better than training suggested might be the case.
Yeah, he's had a tough week. He crashed during the North America's Cup as well in 4-man. So we see the sled climbing in that second pressure. You'll see a lot of the top sleds take a nice parallel line through curve 7 and 8. He drops out of the corner. He's trying to keep it straight. He's going to drift into that left wall, take a hit. Skidding down the track. You see some sparks as his bunks make contact with the concrete.
Lights of Alberta capital sitting behind the track, twinkling in the evening sunshine, evening heat haze still. And there is Heath Spence, Latvian beside him. He's offering his congratulations to the Aussies who lead. Now, next up is Canada's Nick Poloniato, new to the World Cup. This is his first ever World Cup start. Alexander Kopac's behind him. It's a great opportunity for this young driver to step up with the big dogs on a track he knows.
Exactly. There's he's got a lot of training runs here, but there's a difference between racing and training. You got to learn how to race.
Well, he's got race numbers and the sponsor's logo on the sled now for the second heat. So away he goes, one of the Helen Upton School of Development drivers.
I was watching the first run. They ran a little short. That one, it looks like they took it deeper. They took 500ths off that start time, which is a really big improvement. I think that first run jitters are out of the way. He's looking to clean up his run. He won't be too happy with how his first heat went.
You can understand him being a little tight, can't you? He was 1/10 in front of Heath Spence from the first heat. He's half a second up already. This is a very different drive.
And he had a late entry into 8, a little bit of pressure on the exit there. He's going to lose a little bit of speed because of those mistakes. He had trouble coming out of Kreisel on run. You need to keep it nice and clean. He's skidding a little bit.
Poloniato looking to take the lead for Canada, still 4/10 up and good speed into the final corner will seal it. Is he going to make it? He's got enough. 126 is quick, and it's Nick Poloniato who holds the lead. There's your leaders, the smiling Heath Spence and Lachlan Reedy. They say goodbye from the leaders box. And Nick Poloniato and Alex Kopacs will be in there for the first time in their careers They know the track. They've raced on the track in various different levels below World Cup. Nobody ever shoves a camera in your face there.
And Nick is a really strong pushing athlete. He actually gave Justin Cripps a run for the money in the Canadian push trials this year. So there's a lot to come from this pilot as he gets a little bit more comfortable behind the D-rings.
You can see the big hams on both of those guys. They've got a decent set of legs on them. So into the leader's box. There's Alex.
Alex is typically on the four-man crew of Chris Spring. We'll see him racing tomorrow in the four-man event.
Nikita Zakharov of Russia and Yuri Chubakov. They lie in 17th place. They are 2100s in fact behind their teammates in Russia 3. So the Russia 2 sled really not performing well in the first heat. When we talk about tomorrow's four-man race, of course, it will be a very historic race with Canada's Olympic champion Kaylee Humphries and the silver medalist from Sochi in the women's bobsled, Alana Myers-Taylor, joining the four-man field for the first time ever. This is being allowed, and it's going to be an absolutely fascinating race.
5:34, a little bit slower than their first push, and the start here in Calgary, this is known as one of the easier, less technical tracks, which means the push is always important, but on the less technical tracks, it comes even more into play. And it's not just the start time that matters, it's the velocity that these athletes carry into the first corners of the track. It's where you build all your speed.
He's behind Polonyato at the moment, and Nick's second run was a lot tidier than his first. I'm not sure the Russian's going to get to him. 125 is a fraction quicker than the Canadian sled.
High line in 11 keeps it nice and clean into 12 though.
119.2. Going to come down to 100th or two here. He's just in the green. 127.6, very good speed. Creeps in front. 1200ths of a second to take the lead from Nick Polonyato.
We often see this driver, Nikita Zakharov, performing a little bit better in the four-man, so I'm excited to see what he does tomorrow, especially against the two women's sleds that are in the field. This is that high line in 11, but he does a really great control, keeping it parallel into 12, high line in 12. And this is where he really reeled in that Canadian sled, picked up some speed in the bottom of the track. We've got Pierre Luders, Canadian, like godfather of Canadian bobsleigh, a little frustrated with the lines, but if you take the lead, you're still in the lead.
Oy vey. Pierre ever said that? That would be what that expression was.
You're being coached by a perfectionist, so it better be perfect.
Yep, absolutely right. Well, next up for Korea, Dong-Young Kim and Yoonjin Suk. Kim will be driving the four-man tomorrow, so he will be getting a second trip. Their number one two-man brakeman, though, two-man driver, though, Yoonjung Won, he is currently lying in 4th place. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens among the medals. Well, Kim wrecks the four-man a couple times in training, so let's see how he fares in the two-man.
Koreans driving Eurotech sleds the same as the Canadian Federation, so the equipment is quite good, and it's been fascinating to watch the Koreans develop over the last few years. They were never in the sport of bobsleigh, and then all of a sudden they've come onto the scene, and not just slowly. I mean, fast push times just off the podium in a couple races. This is a little bit of a messy top section of the track. You cannot afford to hit the walls between 3 and 4, and he hit not just the left one, but the left and the right one.
It's time for the Korean program to expand. They've spent their whole time racing in North America. They've got next to no European experience at all. So it'll be interesting to see whether they come to the World Championships in Winterberg in Germany in February and March.
Nice exit of Kreisel, curve 9 there. He had a little bit of trouble going into Kreisel, so he might have a little bit of velocity speed in the bottom.
Still got a handsome lead over Nikita Zakharov. The Koreans will lead. It's bumpy, but they're in front. Goma Lloyd, who has been with a number of development programs, was development coach in Canada, then in Russia, leading up to the last 2 Winter Olympic Games, and he's doing the same here.
So despite the strong push from the Koreans, you see the mistake here, taps the left wall, taps the right wall, sets him up okay into 4, but such a big loss of speed. Bit of a high line there through curve 4, bumping into 5. And high line in 8. And this is actually how you can crash the sled. You see him get picked up. It wasn't that close, but that is a mistake. He doesn't want to be that high in curve 8.
That might well be what led to the 4-man crashes. So it is Dong Yong Kim of Korea, Yoon Jin Suk in second place. I beg your pardon, the brakeman in the lead. They lead from Nikita Zakharov of Russia as Alexei Stulnev is at the line for Russia. Russia's Alexei Stulnev and Kirill took 15th after the first heat, ready to go in heat 2, the second and deciding run. There are your Korean leaders, Martin Haven and Helen Upperton, watching the action trackside here in Calgary.
A little bit of a hop off the block there. You always want as much momentum going forward into that 170-kilo sled. You got to get it moving as fast as possible over 50 meters. 5:24 is a pretty decent start time. Again, we want to see these runner tips. As you come out of corner 3, you want to see them pointing dead straight, and he is. A little bit of an early entry into corner 4. In Calgary, we always tell the drivers, parallel right in the middle. It's the fastest way to go down the track and enter all of these curves.
He's 100th in front of the Koreans after the first heat. He's 11 hundredths up now.
Bumpy ride, though. I expect him to lose a little bit of time.
Koreans had a bit of a rumbustious run down the bottom part of the track as well, so he might be safe. 1:19.4 is decent speed as well.
And he had a great exit of Kreisel, and this bottom portion of the track is looking pretty clean. A tap there into 14.
Woo, and again, little late exit, 55.40 run for Alexei Stulnev, just 0.02 of a second slower than his first heat. So different mistakes, but the same end result. He has the lead of the race with 14 to come.
You can see this nice big 3-pressure corner here. This exit of Kreisel is one of the most important sections. You can see it heading a little bit uphill. He's got a great exit speed. That's why he's still competitive. Heath Spence from Australia is still the leader with the exit speed out of Kreisel.
Well, Spence had the freshest ice, perhaps, of the second heat, but we'll wait to see just how that works out for him. Oskars Kybamanis of Latvia with Raivis Zirups behind him. 2 years ago, Kybamanis was one of the new young brakemen in the Latvian program, and here he is as their number 2 driver and learning fast. And these guys with plenty of speed, but lacking in time on ice, Helen Upton, and a driver, you just can't buy that.
Yeah, run volume and race experience are crucial to being successful, because bobsleigh is all about consistency, especially the World Championships and Olympics, with 4 heats instead of just 2 in the World Cup races.
Well, everywhere else, if you're a sprinter, if you're a cyclist, if you're a racing driver in cars, you get endless repetitions to practice your sport. Bobsleigh, very, very limited. Full 2- and 4-man weekend, you'll get 10 runs down the track and then go away and come back next year.
This driver should be carrying quite good velocity at a good push time, 5:19. He was in the teens. That's the fastest start time we've seen so far in this second heat. Really high line, out of 8, manages to keep it together and composed. Late entry into Kreisel. That's 5 Gs of pressure as you head into curve 9 there.
Pulls it off the corner. 7 of the 8 athletes here are decathletes. Another one driving this sled. Oskars Kybamanis very high and wild. Is he going to make it down safely? He'll lead.
And they are by 100th of a second.
Wow. Narrow 100th of a second there, but boy, in the back seat, I think there was a few nervy moments.
Yeah, you can see as he went down the track, you could just see the time bleeding away with all those mistakes. Anytime there's a skid, anytime you make contact with the wall, and it's too bad. This was a great push. These powerful athletes carrying good velocity in the top portion of the track. Look at the height in curve 8. He's just inches from the roof. Manages to avoid a crash, and then a really late entry into 13, coming down hard into that right wall.
The brakeman feared for his helmet there, I think, probably. Clinging onto the floor of the sled with everything he had. Well, Oskars Kybamanis got it down, didn't park it. Raivis Zirups survives another trip, but that was a little bit of a heart-in-the-mouth moment. The Latvians are in the lead with 12 sleds to go here in Calgary. USA's Cody Basque from Lake Placid, the 20-year-old rookie in his second World Cup race. He is in 12th spot after the first heat. Alex Harrison on the brakes on the back of the sled, the 27-year-old from Washington State.
This young pilot reminding me a lot of John Napier, the same kind of entry into the sport, starting when he's so young, with like lots of runs in the driver's seat, but just not a lot of racing experience, especially not at this high level. So got to get the nerves under wraps. He's got big competition he's racing against. You know, 3-time Olympic medalist Steve Holcomb still.
It was his grandfather that took him to the Lake Placid track for Pee Wee bobsledding at the age of 8, and he's never looked back since, has been addicted to the sport.
And a good line through 8, but an aggressive drive off sends him into the left wall, so he's going to have a bit of a bumpy bottom section, trying to clean it up as he comes out of curve 9.
1300s up on leader Oskar Skibermanis. He was 300s up in the first heat, but the gap is opening up. This is nice from Cody Basque. 79.6 miles an hour in the finish corner, and he has a good second heat, 55.32 run. And that is a nice run from him. Tidied it up when it just started to look, Helen Upton, like he was getting away from him a bit.
And these sleds, a lot of these pilots driving in these first few sleds, they're the more inexperienced. It's the start of a new quadrennial. They're learning the ropes of racing on this World Cup circuit. You can see the mistake here out of curve 8 as he's tapping that left wall. The pressure's keeping him over there. You do not want to be left going into corner 9.
Down the bottom, speed 128 kilometers an hour, 78 miles an hour. Fringing up to 80 at that speed. So Cody on the right and Alex on the left, your race leaders, and next up their teammates. So whatever happens in the next minute, we will have an American sled leading the race, but will it be Cody Basque or Nick Cunningham with Casey Wickline behind him? Wickline, another new brakeman, 28-year-old from Peterborough, New Hampshire. Cunningham, the career cowboy, 29 now, from well, Lake Placid, New York, but also very much a California boy.
The Americans driving these rocket fast BMW sleds, really leading the technology charge in bobsleigh right now, with a mistake going into corner 1. The brakeman ran it too deep. They hit before 1, which sends you wrong. He had the same kind of issues on the first heat. He was sliding all around through the top, and it's happening again. He just cannot get control of his sled.
Canadian program, US program, both with a lot of new muscle in the sleds behind their drivers, and that's showing.
Yeah, the inexperience of knowing that if you run it out of the grooves, there's these drive lines cut into the ice to keep the sled straight while the athletes are pushing. If you're not seated and still, when the drive lines end, you're going to go sideways into the first curve.
126.2, great speed. You saw Cunningham tuck his head under the cowl on the straight for more speed.
It's that, or he was seeing if there's something wrong with his steering rope, which you never know. It could be the case.
Great numbers at the bottom, 130.1 kilometers an hour. That's 80.9 miles an hour. But Cody Basque holds on. Cunningham dips to the line, comes up short by 0.05 of a second.
He's struggling to have a competitive start this week. I don't know if it's because of a change in brakeman, but you see here, watch the brakeman. He runs it way too deep. He's way out of the grooves. The brakeman jumps in, pilot doesn't have control. They're going to drift into that right wall before they even enter the first curve. Looks like the pilot's in and down. Nick Cunningham in. You got to grab those D-rings as fast as you can, but it's too late. That brakeman load sent him into the right wall.
Cody Basque, Nick Cunningham, 1-2 for the USA. There's Cody on the right and Alex Harrison, his brakeman, on the left. So the next challenger takes to the stage, Max Arndt of Germany, with new boy Ben Haber behind him. Haber, a big athlete, 6'2", 220 pounds, 15 stone of him, trying to propel Max Arndt to the speed he needs to get into the top half dozen.
This lead gets me.
None of the German drivers at the moment have the fastest legs. And again, another very heavy load, sled sideways, and the driver's handle dragged down the wall, Helen. It's like hauling on the handbrake of a car.
Yeah, it's just the biggest speed killer. Mistakes in the top portion of the track where you need to carry as much velocity as you can. I expect to see this time drop more and more. And I mean, Mark is a great pilot, and you're going to see these lines really smooth and clean in the bottom portion of the track. I just don't know if it'll be enough.
And listen to how quiet the FES sled is, not a rattle either.
Doing a little coaxing of the sled, trying to keep it straight, coming into curve 9 down that long straightaway.
Kilometre an hour slower than the American sleds. He's getting close. 500's back at the next split. Will he be in front? He won't. All 300s. Kipps Cody Basque for the lead of the race with 10 sleds still to come.
That was all driving. That was all the bottom portion of the track, keeping it nice and clean and trying to pick up that velocity that he lost in the top. So you see this load here. These guys, they didn't have the fastest start in the first heat, and the push time isn't great, but he comes out of the grooves. He's trying to control it. The push bar is dragging on the short wall. It's really unfortunate, and he has a nice clean exit of Kreisel here, right down the pipe into curve 10. The runner's pointing straight ahead.
Youth and inexperience, you've got to bring in new athletes sometime, and the beginning of the first year after the games is the time. So it is Max Arndt of Germany who leads by 300s from Cody Basque and Nick Cunningham for the USA. We have 10 sleds still to go here in Calgary in Canada. Well, there is the familiar view of the city, lights twinkling down in the valley below Canada Olympic Park. Familiar smile for Max Arndt, but leading when there's still 10 to go is not really what you want when you're a German driver and the German #1.
In this second heat, it was a lot to do with the mistakes coming out of the grooves, but his push time is just not competitive enough in 2 minutes, especially not on a track like Calgary. You just run out of track. He needs another, 100 meters of distance to reel in some more sleds.
There is that King up at the top of the track? No, maybe not. He should be somewhere inside in the warm.
About to head down the track, pushing one of our Canadian sleds. Lascelles Brown, just a staple in the program for so many years. One of the fastest pushing athletes in the history of the sport.
One of the longest serving as well. Started with Jamaica, started then with Canada, raced a couple seasons with Monaco, and being back with Canada since then. So of the gunslingers in town, he is still like going up against Billy the Kid, isn't he? The new boys are there and they're all challenging, but he is one of the big benchmarks.
And the Canadian program really missing a lot of their top pilot, or the top brakemen, just taking some seasons off for us. Jesse Lumsden, Cody Sorensen, Neville Wright, all some of the top pushing athletes. And that's what happens after the Olympics. A lot of people exit sport, a lot of people take some time off to rest their bodies.
Yep. Jesse's here, isn't he? Haven't seen
him
him yet.
Watching the competition, yep. But we see in the start list too a lot of unfamiliar facemen, brakemen that we've never seen before.
Calgary, Alberta in Canada, Martin Haven and Olympic slider from Canada, Helen Upperton, watching the second heat of the two-man bobsled race. Max Arndt on the right-hand side of your picture, our race leader. Ben Haber, his new brakeman, on the left, with some work to do to really get their starts together. They lead, but there are still 10 sleds to come, first of whom, Justin Cripps. Brian Barnett, his brakeman for Canada. Another relatively new brakeman behind Cripps. Himself, Helen Upton, a relatively new driver. In the games in Whistler, he was a brakeman. And then in the games in Sochi, he went as a driver.
Yeah, it takes at least 4 years to really fully develop as a pilot, just to have the run volume to be consistent in these races. It is a combined time of 2 heats, which means you got to get down the track twice, nice and clean and fast.
He's a big, fast push athlete as well, always was, and that hasn't diminished yet and his driving last year just really accelerated into the fast lane. 5.20 start, a fraction slower than their first getaway.
400s is actually a pretty big drop-off. You usually see 1 or 200s. Consistency is the key here, and Cripps didn't have the best run on his first heat, so I'm sure he's looking to clean up these lines.
Again, maybe he just shortened his run by a step or two to get control better into the first corner and really get the mind working.
6 and 7 was a nice transition. It looked like he went a little bit too late into corner 8. He came off the corner very abruptly, but managed to keep it relatively straight as he came down the track into Kreisel.
Speeds are good, lines are good. He's pulling away from Max Arndt of Germany, the race leader. 128 kilometers an hour, 79.6 in the final corner. Goodbye from Max Arndt, and hello to the leaderboard for Cripps and Barnett. Justin Cripps won his first World Cup race in Europe last year and really just burst on the scene.
Like you said before, Martin, he's still developing as a pilot. He's not perfect. This is a high line in curve 13. But he had great speed in the bottom, which means he really put together a really good middle portion of the track.
Nick Cunningham, 130 kilometers an hour, still the fastest sled at the bottom, the new BMW. Eurotech will be developing a new two-man sled for next season. Plenty of work to do. Spoke to Wim, the boss, today, and lots of plans underway. Chris Spring, Lascelles Brown ready to take on the track for Canada. 9th after the first heat. They just 100th in front of Justin Cripps, 100th more in front of Max Arndt. Very tight battle here.
Great push from Lascelles Brown and Chris Spring. 5:15, that's the fastest start time we've seen in the second heat.
Velocity 60.1 kilometers an hour, the escape velocity, and that's as quick as we've seen so far.
Chris Spring in the first run had a really nice top portion of the track where it was really important to build up the speed. He was a little bit out of control in the bottom portion of the track. I know he likes to drive really light-handed and free. That's his motto when he's sitting in the pilot seat. Beautiful straightaway into Kreisel, nice and straight, but losing time.
Losing speed as well, not in the 125s, big skid.
Skidding through that uphill section at the exit of Kreisel's just going to ruin your speed in the bottom of the track.
Down to 3rd place already, behind Cripps, behind Arndt, might be behind Cody Basque at the line. He is by 100th. He drops 3 spots. There's the mixed emotions of seeing your teammate underperform to leave you in the leader's box from Justin Cripps. So 4th from Chris Spring, and there are still 8 sleds to go.
This is a really great straightaway. You can see runners pointing dead straight, sled off the walls. Nice middle early entry. 5 G's of pressure as you enter this three pressure corner. And the exit, this is where the trouble started in the bottom of the track. He's skidding, he's trying to correct. You can see the runners coming back and forth.
So you take the steer, the release, and then the second steer, and that's what led him astray, because up until then, he was accelerating away from the field. This is Germany's young Nico Walter. Crashed in Lake Placid last weekend in the 4-man race. Marco Hubenbecker behind him. Marco Hubenbecker behind him and a foot taller or so than him, which doesn't make Nico Walter small. There is Chris Spring with his back to us. Half a good run, but only half a good run, I'm afraid. Nico Walter, then one of 2 relatively new. He is the new boy in the team. Just 24 years old.
German's always such a strong program, world junior champion in the sport of bobsleigh. They always have somebody right behind, hot on the heels of the leaders.
Yeah, there's always somebody knocking on the door. If you're number 1, you know there's up to number 10 waiting to take your place.
A little bit of a high line and one, slides off the corner but keeps it off the walls, and that's a really nice parallel line out of 3.
All 3 of their bobsleigh drivers are former junior world champions, and almost all of their skeleton squad are former junior world champions as well. So got a lot of young new talent coming in.
A little bit of a rough transition from 6 to 7, and he's fighting that line down through corner 8 into 9.
Nudging back on line a little. The gap is opened up now from 1500s to 3100s. This is a very convincing run. Nico Walter will take the lead from Justin Cripps of Canada.
54.90 seconds, 4/10 of a second in front.
54.90 slide compared to his 55.03. So that's a 1300s improvement. We've seen very few improvements on their first runs. And that shows that the first Helen Upton wasn't as good as it should have been, as it could have been.
Yeah, the track always breaks down over the course of the race. Well, there's a few exceptions to that. The start's so important here in Calgary. Good load from the driver, good load from the brakeman. He's in almost at the same time as the pilot.
Well, that's the experience of Hubenbecker, and we saw it as well with Chris Springsett, the experience of Lascelles Brown. Nico Walter, the race leader, from Justin Cripps by 4/10, but still 7 sleds to come here in Calgary. Next up, multiple world champion and Olympic champion Stephen Holcomb. The USA's Steve Holcomb on the line with Aaron Victorian behind him, the half Polynesian brakeman, and the former Olympic champion Stephen Holcomb, looking to try and sharpen up his two-man game. Here, big skid into the first corner, Helen Upperton.
He was coming into curve 1 straight, but took a really hard line, and the sled has no pressure, so it just slides around the corner. Steve Holcomb actually holds the track record here in Calgary, and you don't often see him make mistakes like that. A bump and a skid into corner 6, rough through 7.
Won the race last year with Stephen Langton behind him, beat Bert Hefty and Alex Baumann, with Chris Spring and Jesse Lumsden in 3rd. And only 4 of those names are back. 3 of them are the drivers. It's going further and further behind. 2nd place at the moment, might be in danger of dropping to 3rd behind Justin Cripps with another loose exit. 55.28, Nico Walter on the right, Marco Hubenbecker on the left, enjoying their moment in the leader's box as they take the scalp of Stephen Holcomb.
Falling over 3/10 behind the German team, and it's rare to see Steve Holcomb do that, but so much success at the Olympics. He had injuries he was dealing with in the summer. It's hard to not enter the season with a little, you don't feel quite as prepared. You see a really hard line through 6 there. He had to drive very hard to not peak too much. He would have come really close to the roof.
12th at the start. And if he finishes in the top 10, then that's an improvement in the drive. But his focus, he said, in the next 4 years is the two-man. Looks like there's still learning to be done. He'll take that. He knows it's the first steps of a long journey. Top 6 to go here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Rico Peter, the first of 2 Swiss sleds, the second of which will be last on the ice, our first heat leader, Bert Hefty. So can Switzerland pick 2 medals off the tree here? The red and white flags on the podium, Helen Upton, is no, okay, not convincing the Canadian here, yeah. Not convincing you with that sell. So Rico Peter and Thomas Amrein.
Hear the commands exchange between the pilot and the brakeman. The timing at the start is so important. That sled is really heavy, 170 kilos, 390 kilos with both the athletes in the sled. Got to get that thing moving really quickly. They did have a mistake from 1 to 2, tapping that wall.
Exit velocity from the first couple of corners, though. They have a slender lead over Nico Walter, and that is just narrowing a little.
Bit of a wave in corner 7. That's a 2-pressure corner and a rough entry into 8. Nico Walter's run was cleaner and smoother, and it's showing in the times.
They started the same speed as him, but they are losing ground down the track. This could come very close indeed. I sense the German might be in front. Only 400s for the Swiss. Going to be very close. Decent speed of the line. Is it enough? Yes!
By 1/100th of a second, we have a new leader, Rico Peter.
Nearly dumps it in the final corner. Wouldn't be the first time a Swiss has rolled out of the finish line, or finish corner to take the lead. Wouldn't be the first time Rico Peter's done it either.
We call it the victory roll when you crash out of the finish curve. This is a big oscillation. Corner 7, dropping out. It sends you late into corner 8, so you're going to see him peak really abruptly, and you're not going to be able to exit this corner cleanly. Bumps coming off, skidding, but cleaning it up at the bottom allowed him to just edge out that German team.
100th of a second. Even a flinch in the final corner would have seen him lose that time. Yeah, even they couldn't read it. Too tough to call. Hubenbecker. 100th.
It's crazy to think they're covering 1.4 kilometers of track twice. It's 100th of a second separating these two teams.
Alexander Kazyanov of Russia, behind him Alexei Pushkarev. 5th place after the first heat, 2/10 off the lead, 1/10 off the silver medal position. Now this stuff gets serious.
We were talking in the first run how Kasyanov, living in the shadow of Alexander Zubkov, double gold medalist in Sochi. He was 4th in both the 2 men and the 4 men. He's really out to prove a point this season.
Rico Peter, who leads at the moment, was 22 hundredths off the lead. Kazyanov just 100 in front of him after one heat. He's been tied for the last half a mile.
Trying to control it. Trying to control that nice straight line out of 8. He wasn't perfect, bumping out of Kreisel, but he stays parallel.
Good speed on the exit too, into the 120s.
I would rather take a hit than a skid any day of the week in bobsleigh.
400ths of a second, 129.7, just eases out another 100th to take Rico Peter out of the leader's box. Now then, this is so tight, that might be enough to put him into the medals. He was 500ths off bronze, a 10th off silver.
This is really where it starts coming together for the Russian pilot. Out of 8, you can see the runners. He's trying to control the sled and keep it off the wall. 126, good speeds as he heads into Kreisel. Nice parallel line coming through there. You can't even tell that there's 3 pressures that he's dealing with. Slides off a little bit.
Come on, says Pierre Luders. He might just have a sled in the medals here. 4 to go, though. And it might not be Kazyanov on the left of our picture who is the big story. It might be this guy, Yoon Jong-won. His brakeman, Youngwo Seo. And one from Korea is on the brink, perhaps, of greatness. The 29-year-old lying in 4th place, just 300ths out of a medal. A first ever Bobsleigh World Cup medal for Korea.
This is reminiscent of the time that Patrice Servel was sitting in a medal position right here in Calgary on this track for Monaco. A history for that country too. If the Koreans can pull this off, it is a big deal.
Even bigger than if the Monegasques had won it, because of course they don't hold the games and the Koreans do. Korea have today already won their first ever winter sliding medal of any kind by taking bronze in the men's skeleton race, and they might just double it up with another medal here.
And you can tell these guys mean business. They've pushed faster in Heat 2 than Heat 1. The track's breaking down. The athletes are tired.
Great lines, really tied it up. 125.5, good speed, not quite as quick as Kazyanov.
Bit of a skid coming out of 9. Every mistake is going to count here. This is closing.
Down to 500. He was 1,500s up. 129 kilometers an hour, quicker than the Russians, and he's behind by 100th of a second. So that medal will have to wait for another day. From second place with 3 to go, I don't see we're going to have 2 crashes in the top 3 sleds.
Oh, it's too bad he's disappointed, but a 5th place is such a great result for this team. They're really coming on strong on the circuit this year, and
that's got to be his best ever World Cup result and a huge start to get it going.
Powerhouse athletes. Look at the strength, the size of these guys pushing the sled. Good load from the brakeman. And what a nice run. He's got a bit of a wave going here in curve 7, but doesn't cause him too many problems. Controls 8 really well, and not a bad straightaway, tapping the right wall as he heads right out of curve 8 there.
The Russians didn't know which way that one was going either. See Alexei Pushkarev, the brakeman, overjoyed with that. And the Koreans go to offer their congratulations. Their time is coming. Of that, there is no question. Now then, last week's winner in Lake Placid, Francesco Friedrich with brakeman Martin Grotkop behind him. Can he do it again? 1600ths off the lead in Heat 1.
5:06 push time.
Oh, are you kidding me?
They took like an unimaginable amount of time off their push. I don't know what happened on the first heat, but these guys won a medal and they want it bad.
That is the fastest start of the competition, bar none so far. Only 500s off the all-time record, which is, what, I don't know, lots of years old. 1996.
18 years old, maybe?
18 years old. High line. Holds the exit.
Yeah, flops off the exit a little bit. Late entry into Kreisel, doesn't overdrive it. I remember when this pilot came onto the circuit, he won the World Juniors and the World Championships in the same year. It was unbelievable.
Yep. Two-man world champion really rocked everybody on their heels. 128.8, good speed. He's still 2700ths up, 2400ths ahead of the Russians. And in the first heat, he was 500ths in front of them. That's the 0.2 of a second improvement he needed. That's his shot at a second win of the season.
Well, 1/10 of that time came just from the push. That was unbelievable. You rarely see that in this sport.
Wow.
This is a pretty experienced team as well. Here's that late line in 8, but he takes a high line. He flops off the exit. It builds a little bit of pressure, but it doesn't cause him too many problems. Just brushing the left wall. Takes a high line in curve 11 there. Corner 13, heading into the finish curve. Not the best speed, but enough to take the lead.
Well, for a boy who grew up on Altenburg, one of the most driving, intense tracks, to be able to keep quiet down this track, some vindication of the talent he's got. Marco Hubenbecker, his regular brakeman before, goes to offer his congratulations. They were the duo that won the World Championships back in St. Moritz. 2 to go here in Calgary. Oskars Melbardis, Daumas Driskins, 10th off the lead, held by Bert Hefty and Alex Baumann in the first heat. Now, it sort of looked like they were misfiring a bit at the start. They didn't produce the start we expected.
But I guarantee you they just saw that 5:06 push time.
Let's see what they can produce to take the lead away from Francesco Friedrich of Germany.
Two very big, powerful Latvian athletes. Good load. 5:10.
5:10, it's still not quite there. Decathlete Melbardis, basketball player Daumas Driskins. That explains the height of him. The muscle definition on those guys is quite astonishing.
Great lines through the top 3 corners of the track. A small wave in corner 4, bumping a little bit going into corner 5.
Started 4:10 slower, Helen. They didn't quite have the velocity of the Germans either. This is a whisker away from the lead, though, 0.03 of a second.
Not a clean exit of 8.
Better speed, half a kilometre an hour up. That's worth a couple of hundreds.
Nice exit of Kreisel.
200ths, 100th in the lead. Now they've overturned the Germans. Can he keep it tidy to the line? This could be the Latvians taking the lead. It is. Well, Friedrich will take at least a bronze medal. The Latvians at least a silver medal. But we have to wait and see who is going to end up with the gold. Whether it is Oskars Melbardis, whether it's Bert Hefty.
He's becoming a nice, confident, clean pilot now. He's got more years of experience under his belt.
Still falls over on the track.
This is that exit of curve 8. He comes out with pressure and he's pinned on the right wall. You can see his bunks bouncing. He gets stuck there. Sends him nice into Kreisel, but you're losing time as you scrub that short wall. And this was a good exit. Comes off, he's making small corrections, but he goes nice and straight into curve 10, and the bottom was really great.
There is Damas Driskins on the right, Oskars Melbardis on the left, and they're looking disappointed with that. That rub down the wall cost him a 10th probably, and that might be enough to just leave the back door open for Bayard Hefty, with veteran brakeman Alex Baumann behind him. These two took the silver medal last season on this track in Calgary behind Steve Langton and Steve Holcomb, and they will not be happy with silver this time.
Bayard Hefty always been fast in Calgary. If my memory serves me correct, this might have been his first medal as a pilot. He came out strong the very first time he drove here, and a lot of that has to do with his incredible start ability.
Where he decided to change from being a brakeman for Martin Annan to being a driver. He took himself away to North America and learned for a year, and these were the tracks that he learned on first before he went back to Europe as a driver. So this is coming home for him as a two-man pilot.
And he had an incredible first run. It just executed the line so clean, and this isn't as smooth.
Still looking as good as anybody else. What's the gap? 1200ths of a second. Down to 400ths of a second.
He had some trouble through the middle portion, and you lose so much speed there.
And at the line, he's behind. The Latvians take gold. And Hefty does not take the silver medal here for a second year in a row. He's in the bronze medal position, the first heat leader. It got away from him below the Kreisel again, was just slapping around.
The biggest issue, I think, was actually in corner 6-7. It's one of the tightest transitions in the track, and he hung off a corner 6, which sends him really late into curve 7, which gives you more pressure, slows the sled down.
Victory then for Oskars Melbardis and Damas Driskins. Second place, the silver medal for Francesco Friedrich and Martin Grotkop. And Hefty falls at the final hurdle.
Yeah, and a skid out of Kreisel, like you mentioned. It was one of the spots that caused him some trouble. And in Calgary, you just can't afford to make mistakes like that. It's too tight in the top few sleds.
Big skid bounced him in the air, threw him into the next corner, out of control and offline. Well, he'll come back and race again when we get to Altenburg in January and look to win there again. But for the moment, Francesco Friedrich in second place, last week's winner. A new winner in our second race. It's the Latvians, Oskars Melbardis and Damas Driskins, and they didn't do it on the start alone. They did it on the drive, the start, and the kit.
Great way to come back. A nice clean second heat and two consistent pushes from this really strong team. They won their first Olympic medal in Sochi, and they're coming out strong at the beginning of this first season of the quadrennial.
Well, we now have joint points leaders because Friedrich won race 1 ahead of Melbardis. Melbardis has won race 2 ahead of Friedrich. They will be on top of the points table as they head back to Europe. But look at that, top 6 covered by 6/100ths of a second. That's insane. Well, they're in the Weybridge hut. Bayard Hefty chatting with Alex Baumann about what went right and what went wrong, and not much that Baumann did wrong, and Hefty, you can see he's just talking his way through those mistakes.
Yeah, in a sport that's separated by just a few hundredths of a second, mistakes are so costly on a track like Calgary. And Hefty executed so well on the first run. I was surprised he couldn't put two together like that.
Yeah, just got and you know, 600ths of a second. I mean, it's such an insane. It is literally as fast as the blink of an eye, and you know, that's just ridiculous. Damas Driskins there, looking pretty happy, and Oskars Melbardis as well. Man of few words, but yeah, he talks quiet and carries a big stick, doesn't he?
Yep.
Melbardis, yeah.
Bit of a disappointing result for the Canadians with nobody sitting in the top 6, with a medal last year from Chris Spring and Jesse Lumsden here on the Olympic season.
Well, they're missing a bit of experience, and Cripps is good, but Spring is definitely missing his mojo at the moment. You know, Justin Cripps 9th place, not what he'd have wanted either, but yeah, they need some time off at Christmas to just let the brain idle in neutral for a bit.
And the good news is it's a long road to the World Championships, which is what all of these athletes are really preparing for, is the World Championships in Winterberg in Germany at the end of February.
That's the big target for this year. And last week of February, first week in March, one of the latest World Championships there's been. Maybe that might not be a bad thing, looking at how clean and green the Alps are at the moment. There's nothing in snow in Europe. Calgary, Alberta in Canada, joint leaders of the World Cup for two-man bobsleigh after the first two races. A gold and a silver apiece for Oskars Melbardis and Francesco Friedrich. Friedrich winner last week in Lake Placid, Melbardis winner here in Calgary. Bert Hefty took the bronze medal, but the Swiss look strong. Hefty third, Rico Pater fourth in the points. So let's see what the second portion of the season, the great bulk of the season, produces when we get back to the tracks in Europe that a lot of these drivers know best. Well, Oskars Melbardis may not have been everybody's favourite for victory here, but he put in a good, solid second heat. Third place went to Bert Hefty and Alex Baumann of Switzerland. On the right-hand side in the yellow jackets, on the Germans, Francesco Friedrich and Martin Grotkop, and your race winners. Left-hand side of the Latvian pair is the tall figure of Daumas Driskins and the very nearly as tall figure of Oskars Melbardis, the driver. A lot of love for the Latvians in the men's skeleton competition, a 1-2 result for them, and they claim the top step of the podium in the two-man bobsled as well. And Helen Upperton, it's the whole package now. It's not just some young horses who can charge away from the stalls and hit things on the way down. These guys can really drive.
Yeah, they're getting better and better, and that's what experience does as a pilot, actually as a team in general. You just get really comfortable with each other. You know what each other need to be able to prepare for all these competitions. It's a long season, 8 World Cups and the World Championships and the Olympic Games at the end.
And look at them watching the run of Bert Hefty to see whether or not he would take away victory, and he couldn't. He couldn't hold second place, dropped down to third place. So that's the race done here. Let's catch up with our top three, and John Morgan is with them.
Team, good first run, but the second run not as quick.
Have a lot of mistakes in the second run, and yeah, you need both good runs, 2 good runs, and yeah, we are third, but we are, yeah, I'm happy with the push time with Alex, with 08, and we will see after the Christmas.
It was a good warm-up for the second half. Congratulations. Now over to, what a start time in the second run for Team Friedrich, huh?
Yeah, and the second run was the start time very good, but we make such a bad start time in the first run, so we only get the second place today.
Second place is okay. Last week, first place, you're tied for the World Cup lead going to Christmas. Congratulations. Team Melbardis, start's not so good, but gold medal.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. It's our first World Cup win in two-man, and we need in Christmas work in trainings to better start, but it's good. It's a great feeling.
Congratulations to Latvia. Their second gold medal in today's competitions in Calgary.
And a first two-man win for Oskars Melbardis. So it's a big day for him. And to do it outside of Europe as well, to do it here in Calgary, shows that he has got what it takes. Francesco Friedrich, the silver medalist, Bert Hefty, bronze medal. And don't forget, we return tomorrow with the two-man race for women. and the four-man encounter. The big story here in Calgary will be the mixed teams with Olympic champion Kaylee Humphries and silver medalist Alana Myers-Taylor both taking on the men at their own game in the four-man encounter. Join us for that. Till then, thanks to you for being with us. On behalf of Helen Upton, John Morgan, the rest of the FIBT TV crew here in Calgary, Martin Hayden saying thank you for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow for lots more action.
Latvians unofficially are the winners, and Hefty and Bauman are at 149.66 for 2 months.